Welcome to Empowerment in Illness. I am your host, Gwen. This podcast was created to bring awareness to autoimmune diseases and chronic conditions by listening to warriors and their journey. Today is no exception. We have a special guest eager to share her story with us. Steph, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Steph, can you take us back to when you first began to notice symptoms? What initially prompted you to seek medical attention?
Yeah, so I want to, first clarify that I have two different conditions. One is fibromyalgia, which I was diagnosed with over 10 years ago. And I have managed that decently on my own. But the second one is Behcet's disease, which is what I wanted to focus on for this interview. So symptoms started in the beginning of 2022 with frequent throat ulcers that were in the back of my throat. Initially, I was just thinking, oh, maybe I'm just getting sick, but I never actually got sick, and the sores just got worse, and then they were more widespread, so I was getting them on my gums, the insides of my cheeks, and the roof of my mouth. They were really painful. And so one day when I was at the dentist office, he noticed them as well, and he recommended that I see an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Along with the ulcers, I was also experiencing daily headaches and GI issues, as well as some joint pain. So that's kind of what prompted me to go to my primary care. And here in the United States, they tend to refer you to specialists. I was sent to all kinds of specialists, such as the ear, nose, and throat doctor, a GI doctor, and a neurologist within that first year. And then another symptom of Behcet's disease is genital ulcers, which I also experienced, but I didn't get those until the beginning of 2024. So obviously they tested me for sexually transmitted diseases, which everything came back negative. And I also have very sensitive skin and bruise easily. So I've spent the last few years getting a lot of tests done, lab work, and a lot of specialist appointments. Finally led to me going to see a rheumatologist in November of 2024. And at that point, he basically was like, this is what I think you have, but he didn't know what to do with me and literally said that I was too complicated. So I've been referred to see a different rheumatologist, which I won't have that appointment until April 1st, and I have to drive about 3 hours to see them.
So he actually said you were too complicated?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went through kind of my history with him, and then he did have me do a little bit more lab work just to rule anything out. And then when I followed back up, he's like, well, what are we going to do with you? And I said, well, I was hoping that you would have that answer. And he's like, I don't know, you're complicated.
Wow. Talk about
Yeah.
gaslighting?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to say that. So I was very surprised. And I was I had actually done some research beforehand on a different rheumatologist who would specialize in Behcet's disease because it is more rare. And so I had said, well, can you refer me to somebody else? And he was like, yeah, that's probably going to be the best bet. So.
Okay, so tell everyone, what is Behcet? How do you say it? Behcet?
I think it's pronounced Behcet's disease, but I could be wrong as well. So basically, it is inflammation of your veins and arteries. So obviously, it can lead to very complicated things such as, heart attack, stroke, and many other things, with your, veins and arteries being involved. A lot of people with Behcet's disease also experience uveitis, which is inflammation in your eyes. Thankfully, right now, I'm not experiencing that, and I'm hoping that I can kind of get it under control to where I don't have so much inflammation and it doesn't lead to that.
So, how did you feel when you first received the diagnosis? Like, was it a relief to have a name for it, or did it bring more questions than answers?
So in a way, I feel like, yeah, it was a relief because, when you have so many tests done and you don't get any answers and everything's coming back like, quote, normal, it's pretty invalidating. So it was just kind of nice to get an answer, but it was also nerve-wracking since it can, impact my eyes and my vision and can lead to such scary complications. Another complication would be blood clots. So it's not an issue of like your blood's not flowing correctly. It's an issue of the inflammation that occurs within the veins and the arteries.
Your veins restrict, and that's what causes?
Yeah, so your veins get inflamed.
Okay.
And that would be what would cause you to have like a blood clot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like blood thinners wouldn't make a difference in my situation. So, but I do still have a lot more questions. Definitely feel like I've done a lot of research, but obviously I don't know exactly what all I can do. So I'm hoping that my appointment in April with the new rheumatologist will give me some more answers and provide me with some better ways to manage the disease.
Yeah. We don't always know what's going on, but we know we have issues, right? And so we're looking for doctors to may not have all the answers, but at least tell you, I can, I'll help you as much as I can and we'll find it out together. Not that I don't know what to do with you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I was honestly hoping like that he would have done a little bit of research, maybe reached out to some colleagues that make me my appointments with him, and he did not do that. So,
have you encountered mental health challenges related to your condition? How stressful has it been, and what strategies have you used to kind of cope with having a diagnosis like this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had my mental health challenges. It's not easy being able to know that, like, more than likely things are not going to get better for you. You might have some better ways to, like, manage things, but, like, this is something I'll have to deal with for the rest of my life. So it definitely changes everything. But it has been helpful for me. I do see a mental health therapist, and I'm lucky to have a good support system at home, with, friends and family. I also joined a Behcet syndrome group on Facebook. That's helpful. They give me some helpful information on there. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing these symptoms, as well as posting on TikTok, which obviously is what connected us, which is great. I definitely feel a lot less alone and a lot more seen when there's so many people that can relate, which is also, I always say bittersweet, because it's nice to make those connections, but it's also like, man, I just feel so bad that there's so many people going through this kind of thing.
Absolutely. But that's one good thing that you found someone, a group, because that support is vital. It is extremely vital. So, what is a typical day like now that you've been diagnosed? What does it look like? How has it manifested?
So I still work. I work full time. I have my worries that this won't be the case in the future, because I do have a lot of problems and a lot of pain, but I am trying to implement better habits, such as eating better and light movement, to where it's not going to put me in a flare, but I'm still being active. And as far as I guess what's changed, I guess just trying to give myself more grace, because I know that I have limitations, and it's, I guess, nice to know why I have them.
So you mentioned that you have sores, or the ones in your mouth. Are they similar to canker sores?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they
And
are.
so they're in your throat, or are they like usually in your mouth? Like under your
So
tongue?
they're everywhere. Like I said, started in the back of my throat, and then they progressed just to be everywhere. I'll get them on the roof of my mouth. I'll get them like along my gums, like right underneath my teeth. I'll get them on my cheeks on the inside of my mouth. So like I recently just had some on my gum line. I'm like brushing my teeth. It was painful because of
Mm-hmm.
the sores.
The reason I asked that question because I have lupus, and one of the ways that I know I'm having a flare up is I get canker sores in my mouth.
Mhm.
I've never had them in my throat, but they've been all over my mouth, at the roof of my mouth and under my tongue. And I also get them on my
Really?
gums as well.
Okay.
So there's a similarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I
it's
know. In that I was tested for lupus as well, but I didn't, test positive for that, and I don't have like all of the symptoms to go with lupus.
yeah. And then you said that you'll have some like in your genital area.
Yes, I do, and that's like it's so embarrassing too because I've been married. I've been with my husband for over 5 years, and so then when I started getting these, it's like why,
Mm-hmm.
like it's obviously we didn't suspect it being a sexually transmitted disease, obviously, because of our situation, but it was just like, it's still hard. I mean, it definitely impacts intimacy because you know how painful it is when you get a mouth ulcer. It's just as painful when you get it on your genitals, and then
Mm-hmm.
when you're going to the bathroom, it hurts, and so that's been a whole nother thing. And I am on medication to help with the ulcers. It's called colchicine, and it has helped, but I have noticed lately for some reason it hasn't been as effective for me. So that's another thing that I'm like looking forward to speaking with the rheumatologist about, is maybe some other options for that too.
Okay. I was going to ask you about the healthcare system and your experience, but I
Yeah,
need.
it's been a struggle, especially I will say too, I live in a small town. So a lot of my care I have to travel for. So typically I'm traveling at least an hour to appointments. My main neurologist is actually a little over 2 hours away, which is okay in a way, but also it's just another thing. It's more time that I have to take off of work. But yeah, it's been a lot as far as the healthcare system goes. I've actually had three different neurologists until I got the one that I have now, and I've also had a lot of battles with insurance. I am currently battling insurance with a different problem. So, and another example is like it took me a year to get on a good headache medication regimen because you have to like start with the least expensive for the healthcare system to like the more expensive options. So I've tried multiple different medications, including like injections and all of that. And then finally on a good regimen, and overall my headaches have decreased quite significantly with that.
Okay, so your headaches are like migraines,
Yeah,
like pretty severe.
it's like an immense amount of pressure in your head. It's like your whole entire head. I don't get like people think of migraines, they think of like the blurry vision or maybe even vomiting. I don't get that, but I just get an immense amount of pressure in my head and sensitivity to light.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know when you're having like a flare up? What are some of the signs?
So the mouth ulcers being worse is one. My headaches is obviously another one. I actually just had a bad one yesterday, and that's the worst one I have had in probably 2 months. I was actually going to my friend's baby shower, which was an hour south of me, and I could tell I was getting the headache as I was going down, so I have an emergency medication, and I took that, which got me through the baby shower, and then as it got further on in the day, I started to feel worse again. Took some Tylenol, and I went home, and I ended up going to bed at 7 p.m. last night.
So you mentioned that you work. Have you informed your employer about your condition?
I did, yes, because I have so many doctor appointments. Thankfully, my job, I work a lot of evenings. I have a lot of evening meetings, so it kind of works out. I can plan my doctor's appointments in the morning, or kind of work around that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have let them know because I have a lot of doctor appointments and have to go back and forth with that.
Well, that's good that they're supportive.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have a good employer. They very sympathetic, and they're if you need anything, let us know. Pretty understanding. So that's definitely a positive thing for me.
What advice would you give someone who suspects that they have that same condition or has been recently diagnosed?
I would say to just never stop advocating for yourself. I've kind of fallen through the cracks at some doctor's offices, and I've had to make sure I call back and really advocate for my own health. And if they're experiencing multiple symptoms like I was, maybe see if they can get into a rheumatologist instead of having to go to specialist after specialist.
Yeah. With fibromyalgia, I would think that that doctor that you went to, the rheumatologist, that he could have tried to do something else, at least tried to help a little bit more. So that was really unfortunate.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm hopeful for my appointment, which is it's April 1st, so it's not too far away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful for that one because the doctor comes out of a pretty prestigious clinic, and I'm thinking that she'll be able to help me a little bit more.
Okay, so how are you adjusting to life with your condition in long term? Do you feel hopeful about managing it?
Yeah, so like I did mention a little bit, I'm working on healthier eating habits and just trying to move my body more because I think that is important for long term. My neurologist actually recommended an anti-inflammatory diet for me, and I can tell a difference when I'm following it and when I'm not. And I do feel a little bit of pressure to work a little bit harder now to save up for my future in case I do become less able. But I am hopeful that I'll be able to get some more support and kind of have better living conditions, I guess, going forward after I can get on a better regimen with my rheumatologist.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because right now you really don't know a whole lot about it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so your group, have they said anything else that could help that you can take with you to the new rheumatologist?
They just said to bring my medical records, which I'm obviously going to do. And I know quite a few of them, there's just different medications that can be quite helpful. And there's a few that are this works really well for me. And then, somebody else might say, well, this works really well for me. It's kind of, trial and error as far as finding maybe what medication might work the best as far as, putting the ulcers at bay and helping as far as all of that goes.
Yes, it's like that in the lupus community as well. Because what medication works for me doesn't normally work for others.
Yeah.
What does empowerment in illness mean to you?
I think a couple things. To me, it means, kind of like reclaiming my sense of self, making choices that honor my needs, setting boundaries without guilt, finding strength in smaller victories, and I guess knowing that I'm more than my diagnosis and I still can have a fulfilling life. And also just using my experience to uplift others, reminding them that they're not alone and that everybody's struggles are valid and that they have a right to advocate for their own well-being. So to me, I think it's not just finding strength in myself, but also helping others find theirs too.
A lot of the times when I talk to people, I can hear the depression, and I'm not saying that you don't have your bouts with it,
Mm-hmm.
but you just seem to be in a better headspace.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely been an up and down thing, and there's right now, yes, I feel like I am doing better than I was even say like a week ago. A week ago I was really struggling. It has its ups and downs, and I think that's another important piece of it too, is to know like you're not always going to be excellent, but you're not always going to be down in the dumps either.
Exactly. Exactly. And then when you feel whatever it is you're feeling, just feel it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Because it's healthy.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I would like to close with a special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel it, do it. Let the depression in for only 3 minutes. Once you've reached 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and get back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When we hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born and the day they pass away. There is a dash in the middle. It's not a long line, but a short dash. That dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness. Don't let your condition stop you. Well, Stephanie, it has been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing your journey. I'm sure your story will resonate with others as it has resonated with me. And thank you for being a part of the empowerment and illness community.
Thank you very much.
Behcet's is rare, and because it doesn't fit neatly in one category, it's often misunderstood, even by doctors. That's why sharing stories like Steph's is so important. Raising awareness helps people with Behcet's feel seen, and it pushes for better research, better treatment, and better support systems. Strength grows where support thrives. Until next time, remember, you have the strength, the heart, and the support to continue your journey. Be safe.